Good evening, everyone. My name is Vicky Jelly and I'm the Mayor of Warrnambool City Council, and I will be chairing tonight's council meeting. I'd formally like to welcome everyone watching and who's attending the meeting this evening, and a special acknowledgement tonight to the participants of Leadership Great South Coast Group who are here to watch a meeting as part of their group's activities for the year, so welcome. This council meeting will be live streamed to allow for public viewing and transparency, and if any technical problems interrupt the live stream during this meeting, the meeting will be adjourned until the issues are rectified. These meetings are the place where we as councillors make decisions on a broad range of matters. These can vary greatly in subject, significance and level of interest or involvement of the community that the community has. As part of making these decisions, we are presented with comprehensive information that helps us form our position. You will find this in the agenda. You should also be remembered that the council meeting is a meeting of the council that is open to the public, not a public meeting with the council. Each council is required to have governance rules that pertains to meeting procedures. This scheduled meeting will be conducted in accordance with the governance rules, and any interruptions to the meeting or actions not in line with behaviour or expectations will be dealt with in accordance with these rules. I'd like everyone to stand and we will have the opening prayer and acknowledgement of our traditional owners. Almighty God, grant to this council wisdom, understanding and sincerity of purpose for the good governance of this city. Amen. I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which we gather here this evening and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any apologies this evening? Does not seem to be. Thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Councillors, at item 3 on the agenda, we have a recommendation before us to confirm the minutes of the scheduled council meeting held on the 4th of July 2022. Are there any questions before I seek a motion on this? Thank you. So do I have a mover for the minutes? Councillor Taylor, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ziegler. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 4, conflicts of interest. If a councillor has a conflict of interest, they must declare it now and do so again just prior to the item being discussed. A councillor who has declared a conflict of interest must leave the meeting and remain outside the room while the matter is being considered or any vote is taken. Once the matter is resolved, the councillor will return to the meeting. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest for this evening? Councillor Arnott, what is your conflict?
I have a general conflict of interest with item 7.7, planning permit for Turum Road. I have a personal relationship with some of the objectors.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Taylor, what is your conflict?
I have a conflict of interest in item 7.5 in the planning application of 63 Mackenzie's Road, as I have shares in Telstra. Thank you, Mayor Charlie.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Okay, agenda item number 5, which is the mayoral presentation. It's with sadness but also with great respect that Warrnambool City Council acknowledges the passing and remarkable creative life of Gunditjmara Bunjunglang man Archie Roach. Archie Roach was a truth teller, an inspirational figurehead with a unique skill of bringing people together rather than to divide. He was all about reconciling, learning and forgiving. He was one who gave his people voice, and that voice opened eyes to the truth. It was a unifying force. His beautiful voice and his stories shone a light on the tragedy of the stolen generation, and through his voice he revealed not only his personal trauma but also the challenges facing First Nations people in Australia. His songs came from his heart, and despite all the sorrow life threw at him, his grace and humour shone through. He was a courageous storyteller and a world-renowned musician. Archie leaves behind a legacy of tireless work towards reconciliation and a new generation to carry on his message of healing into the future. He was a voice for all generations. Our country has lost a brilliant talent, a powerful and prolific national truth teller. His dignity and strength will be remembered and valued by so many. He was a champion for First Nations people and all humanity. Our condolences go to Archie's immediate and extended family. We grieve for his passing, we honour his life, and we hope that his words, his music and his spirit will endure for generations to come. They encourage and inspire us to learn and celebrate Aboriginal culture and to work towards a shared and equitable future for all Australians. Archie Roach has now gone to the dream time. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 6, public question time. All questions must be received by no later than 2 hours before the commencement of the scheduled council meeting or 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting, where it is scheduled to commence at 5:45. 30 minutes is allocated to each meeting for public question time. CEO, are there any public questions this evening?
Mayor, we have a number of questions from Steve Moore.
Is Steve here tonight? No.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, we move to the more formal part of the agenda. Councillors, now we're moving to the officers' report section of the agenda. I would like to remind you of the speaking times allocated for each item during the meeting, as outlined in our governance rules. The mover of a motion...
Sorry, why can't we hear the answers and the questions? Sorry.
Because the person that asked the questions need to be at the meeting for them to be read out at the meeting.
Okay, okay. Sorry.
No, that's all right. No, that's all good. The mover of a motion may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes to open the debate and then a further 2 minutes later on to exercise their right of reply and close the debate. Any other councillor, including the seconder, may speak for or against a motion for no more than 3 minutes. To assist councillors with time limits, you'll hear a signal when you have reached the maximum time allowed. I'd ask you to respect these time limits. 7.1. Activities and Initiatives 2021 to 2022, April to June, Quarter 4. Agenda page number 5, Directorate, Department Corporate Strategies. The purpose of this report is to provide information on the progress in achieving the activities and initiatives, ANIs, set down for the 2021 to 2022 as part of the council plan and budget process. This report provides council and the community with an update in the progress of actions across council's functional areas. Are there any questions, councillors, before I seek a motion?
Just one question, Mayor Jelly.
Yep.
On item 1.3.1, develop and implement the Municipal Health and Wellbeing Plan on 2021 to 2025. And it says here that number 4, one of the most important one of the 5 keys to this report's climate change, and there's nothing there. So what are we doing in relation to climate change and the Municipal Health Plan?
Sorry, Mayor, I couldn't quite hear what Councillor Blaine was saying from there.
Action Code 1.3.1, develop and implement the Municipal Health and Wellbeing Plan 2021 to 25. And one of the 5 key priorities there is climate change. So what are the impacts of climate change in relation to that plan?
Mayor, we'll have to... Well, I can ask the relevant director if they have got a response to that. Otherwise, we'll just have to include that post the meeting.
Through you, Mayor, we will follow that up. It is entitled Grant Error and we'll get back to you.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Blaine. Any other questions? No? Okay, thanks. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Arnott, what's your motion?
I will move that the activities and initiatives 2021-2022, April to June, quarter 4, be received.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Blaine, thank you. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jelly. The council plan 2021 to 2025 is a key planning and strategic document, and it does detail the strategic objectives for the community. And as the financial year's concluded, we do have a remarkable result with over 85% of all our works concluded to the expected level. And even though we've experienced significant challenges with COVID, and that's led to hold-ups and delays, I think that's a remarkable job. Just one section that I suppose I'm particularly interested in is the economic development team and what we've managed to achieve there. And I'd just like to point out that we're working on several initiatives for Warrnambool business, and one of those has been a survey launched in July aimed at understanding local business interests in economic projects, and in particular the challenges post-COVID. They've initiated a Win in Winter campaign which encourages locals to shop at locally owned and operated businesses. The campaign's ran for 10 weeks and it's been a resounding success so far. We've also instigated a council business portal which is to provide relevant information efficiently with enhanced navigation to businesses. They've provided business seminars and training, and planning is underway to introduce or reintroduce the networking events on a monthly basis for the 2023 financial year. I think one thing worth remembering about the economic development team, it is there to support business and help to promote all business in Warrnambool, and I think they've done a really good job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Jelly. I fully concur with what Councillor Arnott said, and I'd just like to point out a couple of other things that are exciting, because this will be the last A&I for the last financial year. We'll have a new set for the next quarter, but on 1.3.8, increasing community participation in recreation, it's been really exciting to see that our winter sport actually progressed without any incident or any COVID restrictions. And many of the clubs, it's been noted here, many of the clubs are struggling with the lack of volunteers, which it's a challenge, I think, across the board, all across the state, once everyone sort of got out of the routine of volunteering. So, you know, I think it's important just to note that, yeah, it'd be great if we could, you know, try and work with our local sides as much as we can. It's interesting to note, though, that soccer is one of the sports in Warrnambool that's actually experiencing significant growth, which is really exciting, especially with all the advocacy work that we've been doing on Briley. The other one, which I actually think is really, really exciting, really supporting our volunteers as well, is 2.3.1, the volunteer groups that are out cleaning up our beaches. And it's really exciting to see that council's been giving them bags and waste disposal for the work that they do. These guys are donating their time, and council, we're supporting them in providing them with the way to get rid of their waste. And the volunteers, you know, they're going above and beyond. They're doing separation, so the waste isn't actually going into landfill, it's going into recycling. I'd really like to say thank you to all the volunteers who are taking their time to do this work, protecting our environment, and it's great to see council actually supporting this work. And just one other thing which is, I think, really exciting to see is the Woodford Bushfield project is finally underway, and we've got funding going on that. So I think that's a really exciting thing for our outlying communities as well on 3.2.4. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. Yes, I'd just like to compliment all the council officers on their hard work over the last quarter in achieving a lot of the great results shown in the initiative and activities, and also like to comment on item 3.31 that the visitor economy teams are working together with Great Ocean Road Regional Tourism to develop a destination plan, as a lot of effort and work needs to be done in promoting this great city of Warrnambool. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Anyone else? No, thank you. I would agree that it's been a great year. All the activities and initiatives for the whole year coming to culmination now. A high level of completion, 85% of things that we wanted done, and it's been, as we know, difficult. We've got, staffing issues ourselves, delivery of different services and things like that, faced with another year of living with COVID and all the things that go with it. So I think it's been a great outcome, and congratulate, as we have Councillor Blaine congratulated with the staff for getting on and getting these things done. It was really, really pleasing to see that. And there's some great activities. West Warrnambool Neighbourhood House, they've provided a lot to the community, especially over the last couple of years. So really congratulate the people there in assisting the community. So there being no further speakers, Councillor Arnott, do you wish to speak before closing?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, 7.2, Procurement of Telecommunications Service, agenda page number 7, Directorate Corporate Strategies. The purpose of this report is to inform Council about the procurement process which has been undertaken regarding telecommunication services for the next 3 years, and flags to Council the requirement for their approval to enter into a new contract exceeding the Chief Executive financial delegation. Are there any questions on this before we move for a motion? Thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion? Thank you.
I move that we accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ziegler, thank you. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Jelly. It's important that council stays connected, and this is just a communication service contract. There is a saving under this new contract compared to the previous one of around $2,000 per month is expected. There's only 2 really viable carriers, I'd say, in the area for what we do, Telstra and Optus, and just because of the data levels, I believe there's a reason that we're stuck with Telstra, and Telstra actually has superior capacity. So this is a 3-year contract. It's pretty standard, so I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ziegler.
Yes, Mayor Jelly, I'll endorse the words of Councillor Blaine. This is standard practice. We need the Chief Executive Officer to be able to enter into the contract on our behalf, and I think personally that the Telstra option is the most viable for us.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak? No? Okay. Councillor Blaine, there being no further speakers, would you like to close?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Agenda item 7.3, contract 2022038 and RFQ 2022041 for the design and construction of gantries, roof shelter and associated works sale yards refurbishment project at the Southwest Victorian Livestock Exchange. Agenda page number 10. Directorate Corporate Strategies. This report discusses the option to award or reject the tender for the design and construction of gantries, roof shelter and associated works sale yard refurbishment project at the Southwest Victorian Livestock Exchange, Karamat Road, Warrnambool. Are there any questions before I seek a motion, councillors? Thank you. So, councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I'd like to move that council writes to Bolton Constructions informing them that council will not be letting the tender, that the tender will be thanked for their excellent and comprehensive response to the tender, and also that council commence a stakeholder and community engagement exercise based on the implications of not committing to the upgrade works and the questions raised by the financial commitments required relating to the longer-term financial viability of the operation.
Okay, do I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Arnott, thank you. Councillor Blain, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jelly. Look, I've found this to be a really hard decision, and I think it's important that council go to community consultation on the future of the livestock exchange. Look, the livestock exchange, I believe, is a commercial operation of council. And look, if you have a look in the reports, there's a lot of information attached to this item. The capital investment required, the economic analysis on the supply side of the industry, the detailed structural engineers reports for the extent of the works to be rectified at the yards, and the facilities draft asset management plan. Looking at this tender as it sits at the moment, I don't see how this will be. I don't see this moving the facility to being commercially competitive in our region. Any investment in the sale yards will currently extend the life, I'd suggest, for a maximum of 20 years. We've got growth around that area with housing, and as a commercial operation of council, I think it'd struggle to compete in the market. Also, the structural engineers reports show just the amount of work that is needed to maintain the asset as it currently sits, which in my opinion is quite substantial. The report attached from over a decade ago outlines some of the biggest risks to the future of the South West Livestock Exchange, and it seems these predictions have come true. If there'd been investment over the last decade, this would have been a totally different debate. I'm not arguing that, but I can't change the past. But now, as it sits, the significant capital contribution, which is around 5 cents in the dollar of our current budget, and the current conditions of the yards and the commercial considerations of the yards do present a risk to council. Also, as a commercial operation of council, it's expected that this facility will return to council in order for us to provide for other key services to the community. And look, by going to consultation, this doesn't mean the yards have to go right now. I suppose the big question is, does Warrnambool want to subsidise a facility around 5 cents in the dollar of the budget, starting to be surrounded by housing, or divest, free up some cash and deliver more services to Warrnambool and the surrounding region? Look, from a revenue side, having the land as rateable property, I'd think, would exceed the current profits, and I think that the services that we could improve or extend with the use of the yards and the land would be significant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Arnott. Would you like to
Yes,
speak?
thank you, Mayor Jelly. First of all, thank you, Councillor Blain. You have made some very valid points within your motion. First of all, I would like to thank Bolton Constructions. They have put forward a very extensive tender, and which has obviously taken time, effort and money, so I do thank them. I think we've got to the stage now with this ageing sale yards that we need to ask the question, at what price does investment outstrip the return to the community? We are all very well aware that the sale yards, there's been a lack of significant investment. They have fallen into quite a state of disrepair. And the amount of investment required to bring them up to an acceptable operating level is significant. And we do have to question the economic soundness of such a decision. It would be a dereliction of our duty if we didn't question the viability of spending such a large sum of money. And we do have to consider whether the community should bear that burden. it is going to take approximately 20 years for the sale yards to for a return on investment for that amount of money. And we really do need to make sure that we have the community's best interest at heart and we act prudently and carefully. So this is why I do welcome some community input, and I ask everyone to really participate. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thanks, Councillor Arnott. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Ziegler.
Well, I'm very much in favour of going to the community to consult them on what the community feels they need to, or what the future of the sale yards should be. I believe that the tenor of this particular motion is not what I want to hear. It's my firm belief that council should do all it can to refurbish and retain the sale yards for the foreseeable future. The livestock exchange is more than a money maker for Warrnambool. It's a social endeavour and a meaningful part of a country town. It has been deliberately run down by the same people who tried to market Warrnambool as a cosmopolitan city by the sea, and for whom the coffee and gym lifestyle and the invention of lycra is the highest pinnacle of human achievement. The sale yards represent another artery for the lifeblood of this town and the people who live around the region. I'm happy to contemplate a future move, but in the immediate future I believe we need to invest to retain it.
Thanks, Councillor Ziegler. Anyone else? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. Of course, this is a very complex issue. It's required in the past and still requires, I think, so much in-depth consideration. It's got a number of internal and external factors. The internal factors are the agents, the staff, the clients, the ageing infrastructure, the return on investment, and there are external factors like location, increased competition, and the diversity of current selling methods. I think there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the sale yards have unfairly suffered from underinvestment over a lengthy period of time. And I think this is the obvious and major factor that's now brought this issue to a head. To invest millions of dollars of ratepayers' money into the sale yards for what I see to be a finite period of time, how long that is, I don't know, due to its location, requires serious and lengthy deliberation. Do we need to put the sale yard capital works on hold and consult with stakeholders in the community? In my mind, absolutely. Does the community need to consider an appropriate level of investment of their rates into such a facility, something that they're comfortable with? Yes. And does the community need to consider the useful life of this facility in its current location? Yes. So as far as this alternative motion goes, or amended motion, I will support community consultation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Acoish.
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. The difficulty of this matter at hand is that the tender came first before the consultation of the community. And if we reject the tender for the design and construction of gantries, roof and other work involved, then what about the result that will come from the community if they decide for the sale yard to stay? How much then we will spend for another tender in terms of money and time? I travel around Victoria and I have seen some sale yards and in those towns. And to compare with our own, the one we have here, I would say is the worst of all. And for these reasons, I will support the motion for tender to go ahead with option C, because what I want to see is to fix this sale yard once and for all. The option C is more dearer, it's expensive, but it's worth doing it, because we don't want, again, to go back and try to put some money into it. What I want to see is fix it once and for all. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor Coyce. Anyone else? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor Jolly. This has been the toughest decision we've ever had to make since being elected to this council. And my heart tells me to vote either way, but the fact that I endorse Councillor Ziegler and Councillor Paspalaris's comments that the sale yards have been neglected by previous councils to the point where they require quite a substantial amount of work spent on it. And I firmly believe that this money should be spent on the sale yards to bring them up to WorkSafe requirements. I'm not letting statistics influence me either way. I think money spent on the sale yards will be well spent, in as much that the sale yards, without a doubt, bring millions and millions of dollars to this city of Warrnambool annually, to the point of up near 35 million. And if the sale yards are closed, the economy of Warrnambool will be at a great loss. And I would like to support the recommendation that we accept the tender of Bolton Constructions to construct a roof and bring the sale yards up to standard. Thank you, Mayor Jolly.
Thank you.
Point of order. Are we voting for the
We've got an
amended?
alternate motion.
We're-
Yeah, it's a that's a foreshadowed motion, that if the motion before us is lost, we'll go to the, an alternative original recommendation that's sounding like.
So councillor Blaine has put forward an alternative motion at the start, which is different to what is written down.
And my motion is, in effect, to not accept the tender.
That's
and,
right, and that's what
to
we'll
go
be
for
voting on.
Go to community consultation.
That's
So
right.
that's what we're voting on at this
Yeah,
point in time.
that's what
sorry.
we'll be voting on in a minute, yeah,
Yep.
as long as we're all clear with that. Look, my thoughts, as Councillor Taylor said, this has been one of the most difficult decisions that we've been in just less than 2 years. This process has taken a while because we've asked for more and more and more information and reports and going over things. There's no doubt that the sale yards is an ageing infrastructure and has just, in my opinion, been dumped many years ago, has had nothing spent on it, which was a disgrace, and that's why it's in the state it is now. We're not a country town anymore, we're a regional city, and we've got to, you know, from 10, 15 years ago, we've got to, you know, think of that. You know, where it is positioned now is, there's growth all around it, so we've got to look at the viability of it and what money's got to be spent. And in my thoughts, it's the tenders. It's going to be much more than that tender amount. Any of those tender amounts there, I think it could be double that by the time you would do buildings, toilets, all those sort of things. So it's much more than just that tender amount. There's more to go with that. So, and again, I would like to also thank Bolton Construction for putting forward their tender inclusive of all the works. They absolutely did hit the brief of what was asked for. There's no doubt about that. They're a highly professional group, and I will, yes, be in support of Councillor Blaine's alternate motion. So, Councillor Blaine, if there's no other speakers, would you like to close?
Yeah, just quickly, the other thing that I think is really important, it's not just the growth for Warrnambool, but commercial factors as well. Like with any service or any facility in council, I do think that we want to be a leader. And even with the construction amount, and I think you're bang on with the idea looking at the structural engineers reports, that there will be more that needs to be spent than just this tender. That's, you know, in order to get it up to standard, because we have to be fully compliant. We're a government organisation. So, yeah, I just think the commercial ramifications as well in trying to compete commercially is probably going to be one of the biggest impacts to the yards over the next 10 years, 10 to 20 years as well. So, yeah, it seems like a finite thing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll now put to the vote of the alternate motion that Councillor Blaine put forward, just so we're clear.
Can you read that again, please, Mayor? The alternate motion?
Oh, sorry, it's
I can
behind me.
read it if you
He might read it out, he's got it in front of him.
The council writes to Bolton Constructions, informing them that council will not be letting this tender. That's point one. Point two, that the tenderer be thanked for their excellent comprehensive response to the tender. And three, that council commence a stakeholder and community engagement exercise based on the implications of not committing to the upgraded works and questions raised by the financial commitments required relating to the longer-term financial viability of the operation.
Okay, right. Okay, so I'll now put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, 4. All those against? 3. The motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 7.4, City Centre pedestrian priority crossings at roundabout evaluation report. Agenda page number 19. Directorate Department, City Infrastructure. The report provides the analysis of various studies undertaken on the CBD roundabouts and pedestrian crossings following a request from Council that the effectiveness of the pedestrian priority roundabouts be investigated. Are there any questions before I seek a motion on this, councillors? No? So do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor, what is your motion?
I would like to move that the motion is as per officer's recommendation be accepted. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mayor.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Arnott. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Jolly. I'd like to see the City Centre pedestrian crossings report at roundabouts made available to the public for review and consultation, and maintain arrangements for pedestrian crossings in the city centre. I believe the Liebig Street renewal has achieved the outcome of the city becoming pedestrian friendly, and drivers' habits in the city centre have changed. I would also like to see points on the proviso that they are regularly trimmed at a maximum height so the traffic is not blinded at the crossings by tall vegetation. Off-street car parking in Ozone Parkers and Cramton Dixons has never been so popular since metered parking has been introduced because of the free hour, and I'd like to see improvements to direct motorists to these off-street car parks. Finally, I would like to stress to the community, when utilising these roundabout crossings, always look to the right for the traffic to stop before using the crossings, because last week I was almost hit by a car. I put one foot on the crossing and a vehicle just sped straight in front of me, ignored me at the crossing. So you don't take for granted that the cars will stop. Still look to the right, wait for the cars to stop before proceeding across the roundabout crossing. Thank you, Mayor Jolly.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. The city centre roundabouts have been a rather controversial subject for a little while, but council did undertake a survey to the community, and it was to review the effectiveness of the roundabout crossings. It did consider all city centre users, so people walking, driving, shopping, workers, and people of all ages and abilities. And some of the results that the survey found have been very interesting. And one thing, and Councillor Taylor will like this, it did find that most people are concentrating more when they're driving, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It also found that some people are choosing different routes. Rather than going down the main street, they are actually going around the main street, so using other roads, which is actually a good thing. We don't want people using Liebig Street as a thoroughfare. And as Councillor Taylor referred, our off-street parking has increased substantially, which is a good thing. Also, the feedback from the disability sector has suggested that we are a more pedestrian-friendly city, and from those interviewed in the survey, 92% of people have had good walking experiences. However, their biggest concern is still driver behaviour. So I suppose the question we have to ask ourselves is, how do we change driver behaviour? And I think that comes down to the education process, still educating people that pedestrians have the right of way. I really enjoy our city CBD. I think it is a great centre to walk around, and anyone using a pram or that has a disability with walking, it is just wonderful. So I think we have achieved what was set out, that we wanted a pedestrian-friendly city. So I'm really happy about that. But I do suggest, if you want to read the report, please go in and do so.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thanks, Councillor Arnott. Anyone else like to speak to it? Councillor Ziegler.
Yes, I'll endorse the comments of both my colleagues, and I'll reinforce them by saying that I think that the pedestrian crossings have in fact achieved what we should have had in the CBD for a long time, that the CBD is a pedestrian-friendly centre, and that cars at roundabouts, intersections should take second priority. It's had the effect, as Councillor Arnott has said, of making folks avoid the thoroughfares of Koroit Street and Liebig Street to get other places. They're starting to increase their use of the surrounding streets so that the CBD is less congested. Certainly there were some teething problems in terms of people getting frustrated with the waits at the intersection, waiting times, all the rest of it, but it's a much safer and much more pedestrian-friendly town for the use of the pedestrian crossings. The vegetation is a welcome sight. It's lovely. I think that we should have more of it everywhere. The off-street parking has been a huge success, and I probably like to suggest we should consider more of the same kind of treatment of other areas of parking. The whole exercise has been a great success, and I applaud the work of the council officers in achieving it.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Ziegler. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. I have not agreed with the pedestrian crossings at roundabouts from their initial implementation, and now some 4 years later, having given them a chance, I still don't agree. In my opinion, the city centre renewal could have been addressed differently, and I think the commentary around these roundabout crossings seems to be that if we didn't have them, then they couldn't be used. You can still cross at a roundabout safely as long as there is eye communication between a pedestrian and a driver. And so I think that some of the teething issues that Councillor Ziegler refers to, in my opinion, are still ongoing some years later. I personally think that the city centre renewal could have addressed the speed and safety while minimising congestion in one of two ways. Firstly, keeping the 2 lanes of traffic each way and possibly adding those pedestrian crossings to the CBD roundabouts to keep things sort of moving slowly, or secondly, narrowing streets to 1 lane in order to reduce speeds and installing only mid-block crossings. I'm not against crossings at all. I just prefer mid-block crossings because for me they're safer. I don't like seeing cars piled up in a roundabout, congested and being unsafe. For Warrnambool, it appears to me that the worst of those options that I've just mentioned have been combined and implemented. In fact, the narrowing of the streets to 1 single lane, especially Liebig Street, has for me resulted in pedestrians thinking that scooting quickly across the street between cars at any location along the street is perfectly acceptable, as it is not a wide street any longer, and to me this has increased pedestrian danger rather than alleviated it. I think that pedestrian crossings at roundabouts are enforcing way too much responsibility on drivers to look near at the first crossing for pedestrians, to look right for oncoming cars, then to look left in case that car stops suddenly for a pedestrian in front of them, to look further afar to the crossing when exiting the roundabout for pedestrians again. It has placed, I think, unfair stress and frustration on drivers and little to no responsibility on the pedestrian. I think it can be a team effort, and I think it can be a balance. Previous council planned, voted and implemented the roundabout pedestrian crossings based on what exact evidence? That's one question that I have still in my mind. I think from the report, it says that a significant proportion of cars already gave way to pedestrians at roundabouts pre-renewal. I think that's a good indication that that sort of teamwork and communication between driver and pedestrian was already happening. So I still don't support these roundabout crossings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Koish.
Thank you, Mayor Jerry. The city centre in any city is designed for pedestrian as a priority to walk safely and enjoy the view of the city. And also the elderly people and people with disability should be feeling safe walking around without any fear. And all of us, we are getting there. All of us, we will grow older and need this crossing for safety. So I support the current arrangement for pedestrian crossing in the city centre roundabouts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Blaine.
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. Look, I do support equal access across the CBD, but I see the mid-block crossings as the best way to achieve this in the CBD. I think it's important to remember that Warrnambool's servicing the greater southwest region, and the only way many can access Warrnambool is through a car. Looking at the online survey, only 30% of the crossing users felt safer actually using the crossings. Is that indicative of wanting you to walk more? I wouldn't say so, when 2 in 3 don't feel safe using the crossings. 69% actually get scared because they're delaying the traffic. That's why these mid-block crossings work better. Most drivers would give way to people crossing, as Councillor Paspaliara said, would give way to the crossings, give way to people crossing at roundabouts before the crossings were in. And this wouldn't result in cars piling up at roundabouts. Bathurst are installing pedestrian refuges at mid-block in their CBD. They're pulling out the crossings they've put at the exits and entrances of roundabouts. They're being removed after years of community agitation. According to the Intercept survey, over 50% of drivers were worried or became cross about the crossings in the roundabout. Does this encourage anyone to go into the CBD? I don't think so. You'll try and avoid it if you become cross or worried about driving. It's interesting, the Intercept survey only actually surveyed the CBD, not the other shopping precincts in the city. Many who have spoken to me find it very frustrating and get annoyed with the congestion that occurs when a car's stopped in the roundabout. I know businesses are concerned about if there was a change, would be concerned about the disruption to their business. But I think, but if there was a change made, I think there would be a quick and simple solution. Just take the signs out, get rid of the lines and the tactile indicators, and free the traffic flow around the roundabouts. I think it would be less than a day to have free-flowing traffic again in our CBD. I don't think we need a traffic flow study to show the congestion. We've all seen it. The focus groups did reflect these themes, and they've been talking about frustration from drivers and also the disabled, talking about the inability to be seen because of the greenery that's around our roundabouts as well. Look, I think as a rural regional centre, the balance between cars and pedestrians isn't right at the moment, and I think that the pendulum's probably swung a little bit far the wrong way. And I think it's something that we really need to improve, not only to draw new users to our CBD, but to bring some of our old users back as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Blaine. I think it's important we have a pedestrian and driver-friendly CBD city, but I think we have to really acknowledge and respect that we want people out walking. It's a healthy option for people to do. We want the CBD to flourish. The CBD at the moment, as far as shops, you can hardly rent a shop in the CBD for a new business. There's people looking, so that's great. So there's people walking. Yes, acknowledge that you do still need to make eye contact, or you should, crossing the crossing for both the pedestrians and the people in the cars. But I think it's a really important fact that the 1 hour free parking is assisted taking people out of driving up Liebig Street. We're not saying don't drive up there, but unless you really have to go somewhere, we've got great parking, 1 hour free parking in the off-street parking, which has proven to be work really well, and we do need to really acknowledge our people with a disability or a pram wanting to cross and feeling safe to do that. There needs, no doubt, to be more education for everyone. So I think it's been great to get this report back. Okay, Councillor Taylor, would you like to close to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. Yes, I'd like to support Councillor Ziegler's comment in as much as the CBD has become extremely pedestrian friendly, and that was behind the Liebig Street renewal back in 2017 for the CBD to become pedestrian friendly. A former business colleague of mine was very much in favour of Liebig Street becoming a mall, and I've always been totally against a mall in Liebig Street for various reasons, and it was trial once many years ago, and on the day it was trial you could have fired a shotgun up Liebig Street and not hit anyone. The closing off of Liebig Street was a disaster, and I think the current situation of the renewal bringing Liebig Street back to, it has slowed the speed down of cars, pedestrians are getting a much fairer go, and most of all, it has changed the driving habits of a lot of motorists. The drivers are using Banyan Street to get into the 3-hour car parks, they're using Kepler Street to get into the 3-hour Ozone car park, and in Liebig Street now you are only getting the genuine traffic people looking for a car park, and a great result over the renewal that you do not see hoons driving up Liebig Street anymore. So I'm all in favour of the recommendation. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Okay, thank you. So there being no further speakers, I'll now put the motion to vote. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? 2. The motion is carried 5-2. Thank you. Okay, we're up to 7.5, planning application PP 2020-0050, 63 Mackenzies Road, Bushfield. Now, councillor Taylor, you've indicated a conflict. If you'd like to leave the room, thank you. Thank you. So we're on agenda page number 24, Directorate City Growth. This report summarises the planning assessment that provides a recommendation for the application to use and develop the land for a telecommunications facility, 4G and 5G, and create an access to a transport zone 2, and recommends that council issue a notice of decision to grant a permit subject to conditions. Are there any questions, councillors, before I ask for a motion? Okay, councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
Mayor Jelly, I'll move an alternative motion to that recommended, that the planning application to use and develop the land for a telecommunications facility, 4G and 5G, and create an access to a transport zone 2 be refused pursuant to section 65 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 on the following grounds: that the proposal does not respond to the decision guidelines under the farming zone, including having an adverse impact on the character and appearance of the area, that the proposal is not suitable in relation to the decision guidelines of clause 52.19 of the Warrnambool Planning Scheme, most notably through the adverse effect of the proposal on adjacent land, and the resultant use and development would not lead to net community benefit.
Okay, thanks, councillor Ziegler. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Blaine, thank you. Councillor Ziegler, would you like to speak?
Certainly would, Mayor. In any of the planning decisions we've been asked to consider tonight, I will side in every case with the objectors, because I was elected to be representative of the people, and it's they who are objecting to impositions on their property, their lifestyles and their amenity. In this case, the corporate giant has essentially ignored the concerns of the resident neighbours and presented a cynical shift of a tower which should not be there at all. The proponent has the resources and the capability to put the tower in another place that would not impact so rudely on the neighbourhood, and it could exercise sensitivity to the objecting neighbours without any impact on its efficacy. This proposal is made to fit to an economical model, bottom line, the mighty dollar, and not to the needs or wants of the local residents. I believe that it should be rejected out of hand.
Okay, thanks, councillor Ziegler. Councillor Blaine, you'd like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. Yeah, I can't support this, the proposal to put this tower. The second site, I don't think it's appropriate. There are other sites around this area that do support the aims of this project without causing such community angst as we've seen. The residents up this road already live next to one tower, and it's not fair to expect them to have to be sandwiched between two. Also, the concerns around the amenity area I think are very valid, especially when surrounded by farming land, especially when surrounding farming land away from this community could be very appropriate for the aims and desires of this proposal. It said in the report other sites have been investigated, but I do think there's a lot more work that could be done here. I don't think it's worth the risk to the residents being between two towers, and I don't think it's what they signed up for when deciding to build their homes and live in a semi-rural property. So I really just can't see how we can support this. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor Blaine. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. I think with so much commentary and strong objection around this telecommunications tower, I support the amended motion, and I cannot support the proponent's application. I think many residents in this area were forced to accept a change in the original telecommunications tower position at the Bushfield Rec Reserve some years ago, one which I assume they expected and accepted could be added to and made larger if necessary. Now that's not the case. So new residents to the area knowingly moved into lifestyle blocks after the first tower was erected and accepted an existing feature of that area. In my view, to impose a second tower within close proximity to the first one is unacceptable. I believe that, sorry, I've lost that there. I believe that the landowners have got the opportunity to live without seeing the two towers out their back doors. And I believe that the applicant has got the resources, both personnel and financial, to actually look for a better solution. So in that case, a better location for the tower. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott?
Yes, I concur with my colleagues here. This has been a very long, drawn-out saga, and we are here to represent the community. The community in Bushfield is speaking and saying they do not want a second tower in that position. They are coming up against a very strong opponent that has obvious money and resources. I don't feel another option has been explored deeply. I think there's plenty of land out there for a tower to be moved into an area that does not affect as many people. I, for one, would not like to be responsible for saying to families you have to live between two telephone towers, especially when they haven't signed up for that. So I do support this amended motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone? Councillor Koch?
Thank you. My Jelly, this issue of telecommunication is really very upsetting to me personally, because telecommunication is a giant corporate which have actually good resources. They can build anywhere they wish, not actually within the living areas. I'm not in support of the planning application PP 2020 050. That is 63 Mackenzie Road in Bushfield on following grounds. First of all, the potential health effect or risk. The other thing also is the valuation of the land, property. I don't think if we want to see Bushfield growing, it will not grow if these two towers is there in that area. So I don't support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with what my colleagues have said with this. We've all got various points. We've met with all sides, both sides of, in relation to this. It has been a long drawn-out process, especially younger families that have built out there. They've saved their money, lifestyle, yes. There was one tower there when they perhaps first built there, moved there. Their children go down the road to the Woodford School. So there's quite a few children in the area. They've got concerns about that. There was questions about do they put a telecommunications tower like this near a school? No, they don't. So those children that live in that area are at home near that tower for longer than they are at school each day. So there's an issue there in my thought. So I feel they could have looked at a further site. There is a lot of farming land around there, not too far away, but out of sight. So I cannot support this either, and will support the alternative motion that Councillor Ziegler has put forward. So I'll just make it clear we're voting on the alternate motion. So Councillor Ziegler, would you like to close the debate?
Yeah, I would. Thank you, Mayor Jelly. I'm heartened by the fact that my colleagues have spoken in support of the motion that I put. In this case, I fully expect that the communications giant will probably seek to have our decision overthrown, possibly through VCAT or something like that. If that's the case, then the residents who helped to vote us in need the support.
Point
of
of order.
council.
I don't think, can you withdraw that statement about VCAT? We can't preempt another tribunal.
I believe that the council needs to support the representatives, as us as representatives need to support our community, and that I wholeheartedly support this particular alternative motion.
Yes, but do you, as Councillor Blaine's point of order, do you retract the discussion about VCAT?
Why should I retract that?
Because you're preempting a decision of a tribunal, an independent tribunal preempting a decision of an independent tribunal that hasn't even had an application put into it yet.
I actually said that I suspect that they will. I didn't say that it was a definite. So I don't see your point, frankly.
Okay. All right, do we need to do anything there? Just a moment, I'll just seek some clarification.
Mayor, I think Councillor Ziegler was quite circumspect in what he said. I don't think he was saying that it would actually happen. And I really don't know that it will influence the outcome of any decision that VCAT makes or not. The decision as to whether Councillor Ziegler should withdraw it is up to you.
Okay. Well, it's up to us, and dare say it's up to, I would not have brought it up myself, but it's up to Councillor Ziegler to make that decision on the advice from the CEO.
I can temper my comments, if you like, to the extent that I would suggest that if our decision is appealed, I think that we are voted as representatives of our community, and I would like to support that community in such an appeal if it was appealed.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, so we'll now go ahead to vote on the alternate motion. Okay. All those in favour? Thank you. 6 unanimous out of that. Thank you. Councillor Taylor can come back in. Thank you. We're now up to agenda item 7.6, planning application PP 2021-146, 39 Ziegler Parade, Allensford, agenda page number 29, Directorate City Growth. This report summarises the planning assessment that provides a recommendation for the application for a 9-lot subdivision, including the creation of a common property access way and the demolition of outbuildings, and recommends that Council issue a notice of decision to grant a permit subject to conditions. Sorry, that was a tongue twister. Has anyone got any questions before we go with that? Okay, do I have a motion?
Yes.
Councillor Ziegler, thank you. What is your motion?
I'm proposing an alternative motion to that recommended, that the planning application for a 9-lot subdivision, including the creation of a common property access way and demolition of existing outbuildings, be refused pursuant to section 65 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 on the following grounds: that the associated density is not in line with existing neighbourhood character as defined under the planning policy framework and the Allensford Strategic Framework Plan. 2, that the pattern of subdivision does not lead to an appropriate spacing of buildings as per the decision guidelines of the township zone. And 3, that the adverse effect on other land, which is a common means of drainage, and the lack of available off-street parking and overall adverse impact on traffic management.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Ziegler, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. This development is not sympathetic to the Allensford neighbourhood. It would complicate the traffic and parking on the parade and create all kinds of difficulties, not only for the existing residents of the township, but also for the proposed new residents of the development. I'm not opposed to a much reduced plan, one that includes fewer units, better consideration of drainage and much more sympathetic treatment of neighbours along Turum Road and safer pedestrian conditions which will improve the situation for school children from the local primary school. I think that the plan application for the permit does not make those considerations. That's why I've put up an alternative motion.
Thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. With the 7 additional properties on this block of land in addition to the 2 existing, I think it's a likely reality that each dwelling could have 2 cars. That could amount to 14 cars entering and exiting what I see to be a narrow, poorly sited driveway. There are, as Councillor Ziegler mentioned, pre-existing parking, pedestrian and traffic management issues in the immediate vicinity of this proposal. And for those reasons, not to mention the major drainage issues that Allensford has endured more recently, I would support the alternative motion. There were quite a number of objections. The subdivision pattern, although unusual, it was quoted in the report, the subdivision pattern, although unusual in the existing context of Allensford, that is absolutely unusual, I think, for Allensford. I imagine that the planning scheme is accepting a future growth of Allensford, but at what rate? The exponential rate that the planning application proposal suggests, I don't agree with that. So for this reason, I will support the amended motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Blaine?
I concur with my fellow councillors, and I think it's important too, when it comes to this subdivision, I do have concerns about emergency vehicles and garbage collection for this subdivision, especially having 7 lots, so that'll be 7, 14, 21, 28 bins, with 14 going out every night. Sorry, maths isn't that good. 14 going out every week, which is going to create an issue along Ziegler Parade, because I can't see them all being picked up out the front of their residences. Density and neighbourhood amenity, I think, is a really key thing here. Like where we are at Allensford there, it's not a densely, it hasn't got the housing density that we see here in Warrnambool, and I find it interesting that it actually fits in with the Allensford plan, because at this point in time I don't see it, and I don't see anything else like it in Allensford. Also, there are issues with the drainage on the site. It is a wet site, so having dense housing there, I don't think it's a great outcome. Not only for the site for the housing, but also the site for the surrounding neighbours, and the lack of parking to deal with the density, just because, well, most houses will have 2 vehicles, and being able to fit 14 vehicles in this subdivision, I just can't see it the way it sits at the moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Blaine. Anyone else? Councillor Arnott?
Yes, I agree with my fellow councillors. I've struggled with the whole density issue. To me, it just does not align with Allensford at all. Most of the homes in Allensford are built on bigger blocks. I see the entry and exit point for this block of units a real concern for myself. I cannot see garbage trucks, as Councillor Blaine has pointed out, getting down there. There is also a traffic management problem with the existing business already there, and that will only compound the issue of cars entering and exiting those blocks. Also as well, you know, there's many school children that walk to the school. There's no footpath there. I just feel it could be better managed. Drainage is also an issue. That area is well known to have flood problems and behind, so I'm not sure that that drainage issue has been dealt with properly. So I do support the amended motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Arnott. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor Jolie. I'd like to endorse my fellow councillors' comments about this application, and in particular, right now there is traffic chaos in front of the bakery there, and it's mentioned in the conditions in the agenda of granting a permit for the application that parallel parking to be introduced in front of the bakery. Now, I cannot go along with parallel parking being introduced as one of the conditions in front of the bakery. It's only going to further enhance the traffic chaos there. So from that point of view, I would endorse Councillor Ziegler's change of motion. Thank you, Mayor
Councillor
Jolie.
Taylor. Any other councillor like to speak? Thank you. I too concur. We're on the same thought with this, with the alternate motion. It's too dense. The 9 overall blocks and the 7 new blocks in behind there are too dense. I think there's a traffic management issue, and coming the exit and entry is an issue, and I think it's dangerous. Children walking past to school, people parking out in front of the bakery, so the view of what's coming is difficult. And again, emergency, you know, ambulances, things like that. I think it's a big issue, and I just don't think it fits in currently to the amenity of the Allensford area. Councillor Ziegler, there being no other speakers, would you like to close?
I'll close by saying that I think that the motion reflects the wishes of the residents to the extent that they have spoken to me and other councillors. I presume that this is the wrong kind of development for Allensford in that position, and that I'd be open to further other suggestions of a less dense development. I'm worried about the waste management, as Councillor Arnott has mentioned. I can't see that the waste contractors will be actually taking their trucks down that little street, and that, as Councillor Blaine has said, those rubbish bins will be placed out on Ziegler Parade, further complicating the parking and traffic issues. I don't think we've got an alternative. That's why I put the alternative motion.
Okay, thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote, the alternate motion. We're all clear on that? All those in favour? Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. 7.7, planning permit PP 2021-0103, 200 Turum Road, Allensford, and Councillor Arnott has got sorry, Councillor Arnott's got a conflict. Stop mid-sentence. I knew what I was thinking but didn't come out. So we're agenda page number 38, Directorate City Growth. This report summarises the planning assessment that provides a recommendation for the application to use the land as a function centre, including live music and a waiver of bicycle facility requirements, and recommends that Council issue a notice of decision to grant a permit subject to conditions. Do I have any questions on this, councillors? No questions? No? People had their hand up before I mentioned. So do I have a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
I again put an alternative motion to the one that was recommended. My alternative motion for this particular subject is that the planning application for use of land for a function centre, including live music and waiver of bicycle facility requirements, be refused pursuant to Section 65 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 on the following grounds: that the proposed use is incompatible with adjoining and nearby land uses, and that the adverse impact on the use on the flora and fauna on the site and its surrounds.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder of this alternate motion?
I will.
Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I do, Mayor Jelly. I think that the proposed use will be a huge imposition on the neighbours and on the local environment. The subject property is actually adjacent to the Hopkins River in a very sensitive environmental area, to my way of thinking. There are elements of fauna there that need to be protected and should not be subject to any kind of imposition of noise or light, such as the platypus and the denizens of the water. I don't know exactly what the imposition is, but I don't want to risk them being imposed upon, and I think that such things as noise, possible littering and light, exposure to light, is a lot to ask of that particular environment. And it's also a lot to ask of the neighbours who have chosen that area, similar to the people in Bushfield, for their lifestyle. They've chosen it because it's a serene place, it's an element of country that they wanted to be part of, and to have this imposed upon them, I think, is entirely unfair. And it's compounded by the fact that the proposed users will not actually have to put up with it themselves because they don't live there.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Paspaliaris, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. I have thought long and hard about this item, and I keep coming back to probably noise. I think that all other components can be sort of mitigated, but I just keep coming back to noise. And I keep thinking, would I like to have 20 weddings a year next to me? Probably not. I do understand that this area is close to Speedway, and I think Speedway noise can be heard by residents. But I would probably suggest that people that have lived out there or bought out there have been accepting, similar to the other item, that what was there already was there and they accepted that. I'm not sure that wedding functions pretty late into the night, being 11 p.m. finishes, again, not something they may have signed up to when they moved into the area. I think I'd be more inclined to support a wedding function venue if it was perhaps day weddings instead of afternoon, evening wedding receptions, because again, I think it just comes down to noise. And I think that I think that that's a big issue for people out there. I think that the majority of regional venues, wedding venues, to me, seem to be on a really vast property where there'd be sort of lots of paddocks around them, and it doesn't really impose on any neighbours. And I think this is just a little too close for comfort with other neighbours in the vicinity. So I will support the amended motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Blaine?
Look, I'm going to go against this amended motion. I'm actually happy to support the idea of granting the permit for 200 Turum Road, and if this motion does actually fail, I'm prepared to move that as well. I actually think it's a great venue for hosting weddings, and it isn't actually that far away from its current use as an Airbnb. And it's interesting everyone keeps mentioning, oh, well, the owners don't actually live there. We're using it as an Airbnb, you don't live there either. The owners are using the property to support their own wedding business. So every wedding that's going to be there, the owners will be there because they'll be running the weddings. And I can't see, the sound just doesn't add up to me. I am sure there is more environmental noise pollution coming from the Speedway than what there's going to be coming from this wedding venue. I think that they're about on par, and if there's any environmental impacts, they'd already be happening long before this wedding venue come out, but long before this wedding venue, this possible wedding venue would happen. Plus, it's only 20 events a year, and I would suggest that the Speedway season runs during the summer, and these events would clash with Speedway nights. And look, I think it's an exciting proposal that supports local business and the local community. And on litter as well. Litter, to me, why is it that there would be a litter issue with the river? It wouldn't be in the owner's interest to let there be litter there, let alone in anyone's conscience, to be trying to litter and, you know, this is going to be a wedding venue, this is going to be pristine. I just can't see... Plus, there's mitigation measures in there for the noise from the wedding venue. It is a fair distance from other properties. Plus, there's going to be a 1.8 metre fence put up. I just can't see why we'd be going against it. Thank you.
Thank you. So with the suspended motion, do I have to do anything different with that? Okay. No. Anyone else? Sorry, just checking. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Koch.
Thank you, Mayor Jerry. Yeah, the 200 Tram Road, to me, is a bit of issue, not only for the noise that will be created by the events, but also my concern is security, because the place is, as I've seen it, is very isolated, and if something happened there, I don't think it will be controlled, because it's isolated, as I said. And even the noise that coming from the Speedway is not comparison to that one. Speedway finish midnight sometimes, but this goes to early hours of the morning, which is also cause some tranquility for people who are there living in that. So to me, I can support business over community. I support the alternative motion that raised by my colleague Ziegler. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. I think the noise level around the function centre is totally irrelevant, because the function centre is only situated 800 metres from Premier Speedway. There are 17 meetings at Premier Speedway from November through to April this summer. And if I had my choice, I would never buy in that vicinity to live in the first place because of all the noise generated from the Speedway. So noise generated from the function centre would be only minor compared to the noise level from the Speedway. But against that, the fact that the owners, well, I'm led to believe the owners are not going to be present at functions, and there'll be no manager there either. So the functions could get out of hand, and it's a beautiful environment out there, and to see that environment have it threatened by large crowds or waste and parking, I will support the amended motion. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Okay, thank you. I too have issues One particular issue for me is exiting, if there's a function there, is cars exiting that driveway onto Turum Road, either turning left or especially right, to come back into town or to Allansford. It's not a great road in the dark. I think I've got concerns about that. Yes, there's a lot of conditions being put forward that they would have to abide by, but I don't know how those conditions are going to be monitored, because there's a lot of conditions in there about, you know, deliveries and all those sort of things, so that's very hard. Yes, those people, majority of those people in that area have either been there for many years or bought there. Yes, they knew the Speedway was there, so that was a choice. This is something else coming into it. So I will support Councillor Ziegler's amended motion. So do we have to do anything different with Councillor Bain saying a suspended motion for the vote?
No, it was a foreshadowed motion.
No, that's okay, just checking.
If
Okay,
the motion is lost, then we'll go to the alternative.
right, I see, thank you. We're all still learning. So, Councillor Ziegler, there being no other councillors wanting to speak, would you like to close?
Only that I would urge my fellow councillors to seriously consider the alternative motion on the grounds that we need to try and preserve this particular environment. And I don't think that the Speedway noise has a huge impact. Those folks have been there and are used to it, the neighbours, but they're objecting to extra noise.
Okay, thank you. So I'll now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour to the Councillor Ziegler's alternative motion? 2, 4, 5. Those not in favour? Thank you. 1. The alternative motion is carried. Thank you. We could get Councillor Arnott back. Okay, thank you. We're up to 7.8 on the agenda, the Warrnambool Art Gallery, agenda page number 45, Directed Community Development. This report provides background to the proposed development of a business case for a new Warrnambool Art Gallery and recommends the site to be used for the business case based on consultation for council consideration and endorsement. Are there any questions, councillors? Thank you. So, councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Arnott, what is your motion?
I would like to move an amended motion that a business case be developed using the Cannon Hill site for a new state-of-the-art regional gallery in Warrnambool.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Taylor, thank you. Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mayor Jelly. Our survey and community consultation did not give us a definitive answer regarding which site was preferred, and my reasons for choosing Cannon Hill are as follows. It will offer outstanding views across Lake Patobe and our coastline. It will be a huge point of difference from all other regional galleries, which also adds to its strength to attract national and international tourists. The concept will be single storey and it will have an environmentally sympathetic design, and the site also connects well with Flagstaff Hill and Lake Patobe holiday parks, and once again it becomes a major tourism hub. We get down to the economical stage of it. The site is going to be less expensive to build on simply because there's no pulling down of an old art gallery. The civic green won't be in use, and it will be, the existing gallery will still be able to operate while the new build is on. It has also been identified as the preferred location with the First Peoples. With something like this, we need to be forward-thinking. We need to be able to create something unique for Warrnambool, and something that will see our city as a huge tourism attraction. We want our city to grow. So let's be brave, let's be forward-thinking, and let's choose Cannon Hill as our preferred site for a regional art gallery. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. Yes, I totally endorse Councillor Arnott's comments on the relocation of the art gallery. I think, well, I firmly believe this is once in a lifetime opportunity to relocate the art gallery, and the views there are second to none, and it'll be a point of difference, and Warrnambool is struggling from a tourism point of view in as much that we don't have a tourism board. We do not promote this city and market this city as much as we should, and I think by relocating the art gallery to Cannon Hill, it'll be a major Victorian tourist attraction, Australian tourist attraction, and on top of all that could well be a international tourist attraction. And the fact that it's going to be less expensive to build there than renovate the current site, which I believe hasn't got much going for it, I'm totally in favour of Councillor Arnott's decision to to the business case to be developed to relocate the art gallery to Cannon Hill. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Ziegler.
Yes. While I acknowledge Councillor Taylor's comments about the magnificent site that Cannon Hill is, and the views and its potential in terms of international tourism and all the rest of it, I think that the loss of the space at Cannon Hill is going to be something that would be sorely missed and probably fairly heavily opposed by a fair proportion of the community. Though I've seen it, the space at Cannon Hill is largely underutilised, and I think the last time I saw a picnic there was 1967. I believe that the Cannon Hill site is the wrong place for that sort of built environment, built facility. I firmly believe that a business case, if it's going to be done, should be made for the empty space at Flagstaff Hill, and therefore perhaps killing two birds with one stone to revitalise the Flagstaff Hill as a tourist destination. I think that the Cannon Hill's open space is too precious to lose.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. I would say that my personal interpretation of the community consultation that was had on this issue, as far as existing site versus Cannon Hill, would be the strong inference that most people did not want Cannon Hill. So as far as considering a preference, I think there was more people not wanting a particular site, which was Cannon Hill. I think that a business case for the existing site could help quantify exactly what the existing site could look like and needs to look like. I think that it could point out exactly what part and how much of the car parking site needs to be utilised to help improve the floor plan requirements for a new library. And of course, there has been strong suggestion or expectation that we would have to go up to a second level with the existing site. If the community looked at that business case for the existing site and thought, no, that's taking away too much of that existing car parking, or something didn't look right in the community's view, then we can sort of discount that option. But I think a business case to support the existing site for a new art gallery is what I would certainly prefer. I think this suggestion of the beautiful views, it's never been a requirement for an art gallery before to have sweeping views. I don't think that that, for me, is a really important prerequisite for a regional library. And I do think that there's been strong suggestion about green spaces and the fact that people consider green space to be so vital and so important to the community, and we would just be building in another, green space type area. There's also the question of if it did go to Cannon Hill, what do we do with the current gallery site? That's another question. That's another asset to maintain. We don't even, consider a plan for what that sort of holds in future. And I think also the idea that consultants have, proposed the Cannon Hill site. To a large degree, these consultants don't live in Warrnambool. So those would be my thoughts anyhow. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blaine?
I would like to foreshadow that if this does fail, that we do move to keep the art gallery in the do the business case for the art gallery in its current site. And look, Cannon Hill, to me, it's such a precious piece of green space in the city. I don't get why, I don't get the idea we need these sweeping views, because when you're going to a gallery, you're going there to look at the works. It's a very special piece of grass to the city, and where our current art gallery is, there's a true connection to the centre of town, and there's a connection to our new library. There is connecting pathways there. I think by putting it up on Cannon Hill, we're going to be disconnecting that from our city. And look, I think that leaving our gallery where it is a it's an exciting opportunity for Warrnambool, because it could be a real centrepiece to our CBD and to the centre of our city. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Blaine. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Cush?
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. I totally agree with my colleagues Taylor and Annette for the proposing Cannon Hill as a suitable site for art gallery. The current existing site, to me, is really very expensive. If you have to demolish it, it's a cost. And where to put the arts item is also another cost. So to me, we don't need really to spend unnecessary money on something that we could avoid. Putting art gallery on Cannon Hill would be, for me, would be an ideal for the city, for also the tourist attractions. So, and the current site could be used in other things. It's a building, is here. Council can benefit from being still here. So I totally support the colleagues who suggested Cannon Hill as a prepared location. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Cush. Look, it is a hard one. It was roughly 50-50 for both sites. No real clear direction. It wasn't 80% and 20%, so that was difficult. It's a business case. It's not saying it's going to definitively be there. This is a business case, and yes, you could decide to do a business case on either site and come back, and it might not be the site you want, so you might go to the other site. It could happen with the current positioning of the art gallery at the moment. So it is a business case. Council doesn't have to commit to an outcome. I think it would, up on the Cannon Hill site, provide a point of difference to all other regional galleries. I think we've got to have aspirations. Here's the opportunity to change something that's been there for, yes, I understand, for a long time. It's forward-thinking, so I will support the amended motion to have the business case be looked at the Cannon Hill site. Okay, Councillor Arnott, no other councillors to speak. Would you like to close?
I'll just say, look, when we're talking about a business case, Councillor Paspaliaris put forward that, you know, we could have the business case with the existing site and the reasons then if it doesn't fail. Those same reasons exist for the Cannon Hill site. It doesn't make any difference. So to me, that argument doesn't really stand up. You're saying about the views. Well, the views are important because we could be creating something that is so totally new and totally different. Why shouldn't we look at taking advantage of those? And it will connect to our other major tourism parks. We've got Flagstaff Hill, which hopefully we may have reimagined down the track. We've got a beautiful Lake Poteau that's been redone, our caravan parks. And you say it's not connected to the CBD. Well, it's 1 block's walk. So I don't see how you can say that is not in the CBD. Does the CBD stop in Timor Street? I don't think so. Many people park up down near the railway and walk into the offices in the CBD. So I don't see that as an argument either. The current site, yes, it is another asset we have to look at, but it can also be used for other things. And meanwhile, we still have an open gallery while a new site is being built. So that's my arguments for putting forward Cannon Hill. Thank you, Mayor Jolly.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Arnott. So I will now put the motion to the vote on the amended motion. All those in favour? 4. All those against? 3. Thank you. The amended motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 7.9, Advisory Committee Reports. Agenda page number 49, Directorate City Growth. This report contains the record of 2 advisory committee meetings. Are there any questions before I seek a motion? Thank you. No, thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
That the records of the Community International Relations Advisory Committee held on the 31st of May 2022 and the Environmental and Sustainability Advisory Committee held on the 30th of June 2022 be received.
Thanks, Councillor Blaine. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak?
No, thank you, Mayor Jolly.
Thank you. Councillor Blaine. Councillor Blaine. Sorry, I was just writing your name. Councillor Paspaliaris, would you like to speak? Any other councillors like to speak? Thank you. We'll close the debate. Councillor Blaine?
Yeah, all good.
I think, thank you. Now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Councillor carried unanimously. 7.10, Informal Meetings of Council Reports, agenda page number 50, Directorate Executive Services. The purpose of this report is to provide Council with copies of informal meetings of Council previously known as Assembly of Councillor Records, as previously required under Section 80A(2) of the Local Government Act 1989. Any questions before I seek a motion?
I just have a couple of changes for them, if that's all right. There's 2 typos on the 11th and 18th of July where it says CF on it instead of CR. And the other one was on the 18th of July, there's also missing the discussion about covers on the CBD benches.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yep.
You right with that?
Sorry.
Mayor, we can make those changes, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. So councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine? Yeah, no.
Sorry, that the record of the informal meetings held on the 11th, 18th, 25th of July 2022 be received.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
Councillor Ziegler, would you like to? Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Blaine, would you like to close?
No, thanks.
Okay, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Agenda item 7.11, Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer, Council Activities, Summary Report, Agenda page number 51, Directorate Executive Services. This report summarises the Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer activities since the last ordinary meeting, which particularly relate to key social, economic and environmental issues of direct relevance to the Warrnambool community. Are there any questions before we go? Thank you. Do I have a motion, councillors? Do I have someone to move the motion? Councillor Arnott, what is your motion?
That the Mayor and Chief Executive Officer Council activities summary report be received.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Blaine. Thank you. Councillor Arnott, do you want to speak to that?
No, thank you.
Councillor Blaine.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Thank you. Councillor Arnott, do you want to close?
No, thank you.
I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item notice 8, notice of motion. So we've not received any notices of motion.
None.
Agenda item 9, general business. Only items of minor or routine nature can be raised in general business. The Chair may reject any item that is not of a minor or routine nature or that meets any of the reasons listed in clause 29(2) of the governance rules. Councillors may speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. I remind councillors that if you do speak, you do have a maximum of 2 minutes, and officers will be provided with an opportunity to respond. Councillors, are there any items of general business? Thank you. Agenda item 10, urgent business. CEO, have you received any notice of
There's
urgent?
been none put forward, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So agenda item 11, close of meeting, and there being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 7:36 p.m.